Hello and welcome to the Calexico City Council Calexico Redevelopment Successor Agency Calexico Financing Authority regular meeting agenda. Wednesday, June 7th, 2017 at 5:38 p.m. Roll call, please.
Mayor Real,
Here.
Mayor Pro Temp Hurtado,
Here.
Councilmember Pacheco,
Here.
Councilmember Escobar,
Here.
Councilmember Hodge.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Closed session agenda. Public comment not to exceed 3 minutes. This is time for the public. Do we have public comments?
We don't have any.
No public comments. We will adjourn to closed session. Hello and welcome to the Calexico City Council Calexico Redevelopment Successor Agency Calexico Financing Authority regular session agenda. We will commence at 6:37 p.m. Roll call, please.
Mayor Real,
Here.
Mayor Pro Temp Hurtado,
Here.
Councilmember Pacheco,
Here.
Councilmember Escobar,
Here.
Councilmember Hodge.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Pledge of Allegiance. Could we have? We'll have. Who do we pick? Chief Gomez, can you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Invocation by Pastor Frank Zazueta, Christ Community Church. Please stand.
Will we all rise, please? Father in heaven, first of all, Lord God, we all rise corporately this evening, Lord God, in honor of who you are and recognition of who you are, the creator of the heavens and earth, Lord. God, you are the creator of the human race, God, and we acknowledge that tonight. And Father, we also acknowledge, God, the need of your counsel and of your guidance as individuals, but also corporately, Lord God, as leaders in this city, Lord. So God, my prayer tonight would be that you would give the leadership of this city of Calexico, God, the guidance, God, that they would need to guide this city and, God, just better this town, Lord God, and its people. So, Father, may they recognize, God, the blessing that it is, Lord God, to lead these people, Lord God. So I pray a special blessing upon their lives, again, as individuals, but also as the leadership of this city, Lord. And God, bless those that are here tonight and the families that are represented. And God, we do ask these things in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Closed session. Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. City Council went in closed session on 3 items as described on the agenda. We did receive direction on the 3 items, but no reportable actions were taken. Thank you.
Thank you. Approval of the agenda.
So move. Mr. Mayor, we do have one request to move item 8 under presentations to number 4. I understand that Mr. Miguel Figueroa needs to catch a flight, and that's why staff recommended we remove item 8 to the top of presentations.
Okay, so I would make a motion to approve the agenda with moving item 8 from presentations to item 4.
So move. Second.
All in favor? Is there? Can we charge him a fee or something for no?
So be it.
So be it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Announcements. These proceedings may be viewed at the City of Calexico website at www.calexico.ca.gov on the Friday following the City Council meeting. We'll move on to presentations. Presentation on the City of Calexico piloting internship program through Ivy Workforce Development Center and San Diego State Imperial Valley Campus.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and we're going to probably have Miguel come up and so he can explain how this came about. But I think this is a very, very significant step, and I think very significant win for the city, for the Workforce Development Office, and for San Diego State University students. So at this point, I'd like to introduce Miguel Figueroa, Workforce Development Director.
Thank you, Mr. City.
Miguel, it's the other,
This one?
yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. City Manager. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to this council today. Mr. Mayor, thank you for the consideration of moving this presentation first. I do want to state that almost a year ago, staff and I, of which I want to recognize 2 of my staff are sitting in the audience here today with us, we discussed about this concept of trying to do more for the Valley. We already have over 80,000 clients that walk in through our career centers every year. Those are individuals that have a particular need that we already have identified for quite some time. But there are still populations out there that require our services. That is our mandate, and that's why it is our due diligence to make the best use possible of the resources we get from the Department of Labor. As a county department, one of our responsibilities is to make sure that we look out for what our local governments need, in this case, our cities. With that in mind, we decided to team up with San Diego State University, represented today by Dean Ponce here in the audience as well. And we thought what better to knock on the doors of the cities, identify what it is that they need, find a way once we figure that out to bring in our resource and see how we can make it work in a threefold approach. Having our education partners, having us, the Workforce Development Office for the county, being the spearhead of this project, and then those that require the service. So I'm happy to share that the city of Calexico was the first city that we decided to embark with this project on. And what this entailed was getting 8 students from San Diego State University to serve through a paid internship here at the city. Initially, we had designated a set amount of hours, which we later extended to 200 hours per participant, because the feedback that we were receiving was something that our investment was being made to good use. As a result of that, I've had the opportunity to speak with San Diego State University and staff at the city manager's office here in Calexico, and we've seen the benefit of the investment that we made. With that said, this story has been in the media since we started, since this was something that was first approved by the Board of Supervisors. And I'm happy to share that as a result, we will now be moving also and providing the same service at the city of Imperial and at the city of El Centro and Brawley. We are envisioning now with everything that we are receiving that this is not only going to be a city standalone project moving forward. We're going to diversify. We see that this is something that worked here in our county, and we're looking to work with other agencies that are willing to participate and benefit from. So with that said, I thank you. I understand we're coming to the tail end of the project with the city, but we are thankful that the city was the first to believe in us and willing to partner with us, and now we see that this is going to be replicated moving forward. So thank you for that. Ms. Priscila Lopez is my administrative manager at my department, the Workforce Development Office, but she's only been in that role for a couple of months. As we all know, before that, she was a member of the San Diego State University family, and I hope and I know she's going to provide her perspective on the project too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this project. Yes, I do have perspective on both sides. I started with San Diego State when this project was first initiated. So I got a chance to meet everyone from the beginning, and it started small. Now it's going to be big because all of the feedback that we've gotten has been positive, both on the side of the kids and the side of the city. It's been a great project. More than anything, I think the experience that the kids are getting, or that the students are getting, because they're not kids, sorry guys, is invaluable for their resume. They're going to be coming out of school with practicum and a valuable resource for themselves. So I see 2 and 3 in our audience. So I don't know if they're going to ask them to stand.
Yes, we have Eileen Córcoles.
Yeah, Mr. Flores.
Should we have all three of them come
Yeah,
forward?
have them all come up, and then we'll take a picture.
I see Mr. Flores.
Yamil Flores. Juan Pablo Favela. And we also have a certificate of appreciation for Imperial Valley Workforce Development, Imperial County Workforce Development. I'd like to invite the council members to, we can take some pictures.
So with that said, I just also want to recognize San Diego State University, obviously, for their input and the help that they've given us in putting this together as well.
Testing, yes.
And I was just told there's one other student missing. I don't have his name, though.
I have a question on the program. Where are we at? So what? Oh, are these opportunities of these type of students available in general to the public, or just in governmental scenarios?
The idea of this program is to have students that are going to go into the workforce. These students, sometimes they're in college, when they come out, they have the theory, but they don't have the experience to get hired.
So it's a general program for all employers to be, like myself, that's an employer, I can go towards San Diego State and
Right now,
participate?
right now, we're trying to get cities involved, and
Oh, okay.
we're going from their standing.
Awesome, okay. Good to know.
So I just want to recognize Isela Calderon, also for her dedication to the city, and Yareli Rivera. Thank you.
So, Mr. Mayor, I just want to say a couple of things because I really think, some of the students that San Diego State picked for us, they were really good. They were very energetic, and let me tell you, some of them want to be city managers. Is that much interest that they expressed to us, and they really helped us in this crunch because, as you know, we didn't have enough people. And not only were they there, but they learned, had the ability to learn some of the soft skills that are going to be needed when they hit the workforce. And, some of them got involved in meetings, some of them got involved in interacting with the public. So I still continue to think that this is a win-win program for the city, for San Diego State, and for the workforce development. And I'm really glad that they're really taking it to the next level and going to the other cities because eventually, we have this really huge producer of professionals here right next door to us. And sometimes, when they graduate, they just don't have in the resume anything to put on. It's very difficult for them to get a job. Now, they can show that they can work in an office, they've learned the soft skills, and they've learned, and they have a concept in their head as to what they're going to be doing when they get their diploma. So I think it's a very good program, and I really thank San Diego State and the workforce development for allowing us to be the first city of the valley to do this. Thank you.
Thank you guys again. Moving on. Proclamation of World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, June 15, 2017. I'm sorry. Okay. Presentation of District Attorney Office regarding obligations per Civil Code Section 52.6 to public notice for victims of human trafficking.
Yes, thank you. My name is Jody Miller, and I'm here from the District Attorney's Office. Now, one of the crimes that we prosecute is human trafficking. With Imperial County's geographic location, it makes it easier to hide and move victims within and through the county, making it difficult for law enforcement to locate and identify potential victims. Because of this, the California legislature has passed a law stating that certain businesses are required to post notices regarding human trafficking, and I believe you have the notices in front of you, informing the public and victims of phone numbers that they can call for help. We have already identified the businesses in Calexico that fall under this statute, and we'll be sending them letters informing them of their obligation to post the notices, as well as providing the poster notices themselves. We wanted to let you know that this will be happening soon, and if anyone has any questions, please refer them to our office, and we would be more than happy to answer any questions that they have. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to proclamation for World Elder Abuse Awareness Day of June 15, 2017. Do we have a proclamation? It doesn't say name, so we'll just go play it by ear.
You want me to start reading?
Whereas elders and dependent adult abuse is a serious and growing crisis in California, and whereas in the United States, 10,000 people a day are turning 65 years of age, and whereas current estimates suggest that as few as 1 in 14 cases of elder and dependent adult abuse is reported, including fewer than 1 in 25 incidents of financial abuse, because the victims are ashamed, hopeless, intimidated, or afraid of their proprietors, and
Whereas elder and dependent adult abuse may be physical, emotional, sexual, fiduciary, and consist of crimes that recognize no boundaries of economic, educational, or social status, gender, race, culture, religion, or geographic location, and whereas recognizing the signs is the first step towards the prevention of elder and dependent adult abuse, and next.
I'll do it. Whereas elders who experience abuse or mistreatment face a greater risk of impacting the health system or impacting the social service system. And whereas elder and dependent adult victims have a mortality rate 3 times that of the general public and are 300% more likely to die a premature death. And next.
Whereas the incident of abuse and exploitation of the developmentally disabled population is shocking. Over 80% of women and development disabilities and over 30% of men with development disabilities are sexually abused at least once during their lifetime. And whereas the lack of statewide elder and dependent adult abuse data prevents policymakers from measuring the extent of these crimes and tragedies.
And whereas elder and dependent adults have the right to live safely in the least restrictive environment, whether in their homes or healthcare facilities, to enjoy an optimum quality of life while being protected from all forms of injustice. And whereas private citizens and public agencies must work together to combat crime and violence against elders and dependent adults, particularly in the face of continued funding reductions in vital services.
And whereas all the City of Calexico residents are strongly encouraged to report suspected abuse of an elder or dependent adult, calling their local adult protective service agencies, long-term care ombudsman, law enforcement or emergency services agency, and, Mr. Mayor?
Now therefore be it proclaimed that in the city of Calexico does hereby proclaim June 2017 as Elder and Dependent Abuse Awareness Month in the city of Calexico. In witness whereof, I hereunto affix my signature and official seal of the city of Calexico on the 7th day of June, 2017.
Very good.
Oh, who do you got?
Mr. Villa?
Oh, okay. So we got everybody? Looking good? One more just for looking good. We're good to go. This one.
Good afternoon, Mayor and members of the council and public. My name is Carla Flores, and I'm with the Imperial County Area Agency on Aging. I would like to thank Mayor Real for accepting the email that I sent him. That was really quick. And he went ahead and prepared the proclamation for Elder Abuse Awareness Month for the month of June. And we're encouraging everybody to wear purple on the 15th because that is the day that we're going to be saluting and honoring all the victims for elder abuse and, well, in the whole world, but basically for the residents for Imperial County. We do have a lot of cases. Just in my department, we investigate elder abuse in long-term care facilities. And in the year 2015, which those are the stats that are most current, we closed statewide almost 46,000 cases, only on skilled nursing facilities. That's not talking about residential care facilities or the public sector, which is Adult Protective Service, which they end up closing almost 400, something like that, 400,000 cases statewide. So we were encouraging for you guys to help us and promote the 15th of June for everybody to wear purple. Thank you.
Thanks, Carla.
Thank you.
I have a quick.
I gave you guys a little pin, some informational brochures, and I left some in the back as well. Anybody can take them. I give you a little pin. If you guys can wear purple, just wear a little ribbon.
I have a question. Again, thank you guys for everything you do. Is Calexico still the largest senior population in the
Yes, we
county?
do.
It is?
Yes, we
Okay.
do have that.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Can I just ask you something, Carla? Because Carla's my friend, my personal friend, and I know that you were just saying that you're long-term care ombudsman, but also I want to let everyone know that the agency, Area Agency on Aging, which is our county agency, I actually make a lot of referrals to that agency.
Yes, you do.
Because in my work, daily work, other than this, I do come across a lot of issues that our elderly population here in Calexico require, and Carla has been awesome. Another thing too, just so everyone can know, is that I also have assisted individuals to make sure they contact you, because you also provide free legal services to certain senior citizens.
Yes, what it is, the Area Agency on Aging provides services for seniors over the age of 60. They're free of charge, no income requirements. We have from congregate meal sites, home-delivered meals, senior legal assistance, public health, respite care for those that are in need of respite, and as well the long-term care ombudsman program. Our services are free and confidential. Anybody can call and utilize them.
And what would be the website to?
It's www.aaa24.org.
AAA 24.
Area Agency on Aging.
Thank you.
And if
Yes.
anyone else needs any assistance between her and I to promote your program, we do really well here. It's a team effort. But no,
PR.
great work, and
Thank you.
really proud of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on. Presentation by Dean Gregorio Ponce regarding SDSU Ivy Campus activities.
That and small kids.
Buenas tardes. My name is Gregorio Ponce. I am currently the Dean for San Diego State University Imperial Valley. I was appointed 2 months ago, and I really wanted to take an opportunity to present myself to the council. I'd like to share that I was born and raised in Calexico, class of A. And I also went to Imperial Valley College, and I left Imperial County to get my degrees in mathematics and in my doctorate in San Diego. But I came back. I've taught before becoming an administrator. I dedicated my life to the teaching and learning of mathematics, particularly in trying to help teachers, work with teachers to find different ways of helping students understand math, because it is one of the greatest barriers that they face. Now I'm the Dean for San Diego State University Imperial Valley, and I have an interest to really try to reestablish lines of communication with cities all over Imperial County, because we are a university to help meet the needs of Imperial County. I believe that the economic development of Imperial County is tied closely to the university and the degrees that we can provide. So I will leave my business card, and I'll give you a handout that kind of highlights what the university has been doing on fall 2016. Our biggest majors are criminal justice, liberal studies and psychology, and nursing. But we're looking to expand our program offerings. The most common degree that I'm asked to bring to San Diego State Imperial Valley is a business major. So I will be working with San Diego State in San Diego to try to see how we can bring that, but I will also be looking for the support that I'll need from really the city's public-private agencies to make that happen, because bringing new programs is very expensive. But San Diego State has about 1,000 students, and we've been here since 1957, which means we are really, really small to what it should be. We should be at least 3,000 students by now, and I'm concerned about that, and hence why I'm here to present myself and also open the door. If in the future you would like to meet and sit down and talk about the future, about San Diego State Imperial Valley and how we can better meet your needs, please, the door is open.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ponce.
Sure.
2 questions, you already answered one. That's the business degree, and I think at another meeting I asked you about that business degree and maybe an international program, working with UABC, CETIS, and the multiple universities of Mexicali for an international business program that would, I think, stimulate economic development. So you touched upon that. The other question I had is, and we may not have the population, at least not on this side of the border, but have we thought about or explored, done any studies related to bringing engineering degrees to the valley?
So that's the second most common major that I'm asked to bring to Imperial County, and engineering majors in general are very expensive because of the equipment. But right now we are in the process of bringing an engineering major on sustainable energy, which really ties into the current progress that Imperial County is doing. So we are moving in that direction, but engineering for sure, if we're talking civil engineering, things like that, it will take a little bit more time, but absolutely, that's another major on the radar, because again, the economic development of this county relies on what we can produce for you.
Thank you.
May I, Mayor?
Sure.
May I call you Dean?
Of course.
Thank you. As an educator, I appreciate your vision, and we all are here to help. Just a question, did we have, or do we still have, or we ever had public administration?
Yes, we have a public administration major. That's the 4th largest major. And right now I hired 2 new public administration professors that will be starting in August. And my hope is for us to bring back the Masters in Public Administration now that I have faculty.
Very good. Thank you.
Well, I want to also congratulate you on the new job, Dr. Ponce, and we have a certificate here of appreciation for San Diego State, if you would be so kind as to accept it for.
Of course, I'm more than happy to do so. Thank you again for the opportunity, and I'll leave this here for you to take, okay? Thanks again.
Thank you. Moving on. Proclaiming of the City of Calexico, declaring June 2017 as Responsible Fatherhood Month. Whereas Father's Day is celebrated in the United States on June 18th, 2017, and this day honors fathers, dads, daddies, papás, and pops, and celebrates fatherhood, paternal bonds, and the influence of fathers in society. And whereas Father's Day is a special time to honor the men who raised us and to thank them for their selfless dedication and love. And
Whereas from the first moments of life, the bond between a father and child is important, whether patching a skinned elbow or a flat bike tire, dads bring joy, instill values, and introduce wonders into the lives of their children. And whereas fathers are our first teachers and coaches and mentors and role models and push us to succeed, encourage us when we are struggling, and offer unconditional care and support. And
Whereas the role of a responsible father carries enormous responsibilities, and an active, committed father makes a lasting difference in the life of a child. And whereas the Imperial Valley Regional Occupational Program promotes responsible fatherhood, responsible parenting, healthy relationships, and family development and stabilization. And
now therefore, be it proclaimed that the entire month of June 2017 be declared Responsible Fatherhood Month in the City of Calexico. And be it further resolved that all those in the City of Calexico join the celebration by extending their knowledge, support, and participation in activities that promote responsible fatherhood and knowledgeable fathers for their contributions to children, families, and society. In witness whereof, I hereunto affix my signature and the official seal of the City of Calexico on this 6th day of June, 2017. And I want to ask, I know that there's a lot of dads here. I would have brought my son if I knew, I wasn't sure we were going to have this today, but Mr. John Renison is here with his son, so.
very good.
I would like to give him the proclamation. Oh, you're with him, okay. You brought him then. Move on. Moving on to public comments and public appearances. Note, not to exceed 3 minutes. This is the time for the public to address the City Council on any item not appearing on the agenda that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. The mayor will recognize you, and when you come to the microphone, please state your name and place of residence for the record. While members of the public are encouraged to participate, it is unlawful to disturb or delay the council meeting with personal or slanderous remarks. If the item you wish to comment on is on consent item, please comment now. The City Council is prohibited by state law from taking action or discussing items not included or printed on the agenda. If the item we wish to comment on is on the public portion of the agenda, we will take your comments when we get to them. Please direct your questions and comments to the City Council. We will start with public comment number 1. Jesse Garcia.
Good afternoon. My name is Jesse Garcia, 600 block of Lincoln Street. This is the third time I have to come here to request, to talk about Rodriguez Park, about we need lighting on the playgrounds. one on Pierce Avenue where the playground is at, and one on Lincoln Street where the other playground is at. It gets dark early, and parents tell me all the time they wish they would have some leggings for the children to play. The weather is nice, and they have to go inside and play with those video games instead of playing outside and doing some kind of activities. Every time I come here, I'm told, all right, we'll look into it, but I haven't seen no action taken.
Okay.
And I wish this time it will happen. All the people, all the parents tell me the same thing. We need light right here for security, for safety for the kids. So I hope the council's not waiting for something bad to happen to take action like many times it happens. No, we have to take action before it happens to prevent it.
Mr. Garcia, if I may ask you a question, is this because the lights are out or we need more lights?
We don't have any lights.
Okay, there is no lights.
There's no lights. I see Gorloa Park, it looks at nighttime, it looks like day. Kids playing. Rodriguez Park, after the sun goes down, that's it.
Rodriguez Park
If you go in there, you can't, I mean, it's too dark.
Babe Ruth Field.
Yeah,
Babe Ruth Field.
it's a baseball park. There's no lighting on the baseball field?
Yes, when there's a game. When there's a game, the lights are on, oh, it looks great.
Yes.
People are there playing. But when there's no baseball, the only lights are at the tennis court, but they're fixed to just illuminate the tennis court, and that is it. So it looks pretty nice in that area. Every day they're on.
You need lights for safety's sake.
Okay.
Are
City
on the
manager,
both playgrounds.
City manager, could we look at that?
Please.
With our public works people and see if, I know there is some lights, but maybe they're too dim or, maybe we can work on something. We'll check
Like I
them out.
said, the only lights is at the tennis court, and they only illuminate the tennis court real well, but that's it. The basketball court is right next to it, and it doesn't go right next to the basketball court. The basketball court is illuminated by the tennis court light, but just a little bit.
Okay.
We need more lighting for security reasons, for safety reasons, for the children. Also, the bathroom at Rodriguez Park has been locked for more than 3 years. There's no bathroom in that park no more. And there's a homeless person living there, and I've called the police department 3 different times, and I don't know if, he also has a trash can that goes to the trash department, to sanitation department, a brand new one. He has it there with him. I don't know, he took it from some house. He has his mattress and a whole bunch of junk right there. And it's right next to the playgrounds where some kids could get in there and get poker or whatever. And yesterday when I passed by, he was still there.
Okay. We'll go ahead and take note of that. Thank you, Mr. Garcia.
I'm not done yet. Also, for many years, I've been volunteering, turning on the sprinklers at Rodriguez Park or on the tennis court, because that has to be done manually. Those sprinklers broke a few months back, and now the grass is dried around the tennis court. So I was told they were going to go look into it. They did this morning, I saw them, and I was told they're back on now. But we need another sprinkler system, another sprinkler head on the west side of the tennis court between the houses. There's one missing that was never installed, and there's no grass there, it's just a bunch of dirt. And those, I think they call them oleanders, those bushes. That section is very dry, and it's a fire hazard. Years back, there used to be guys that didn't have nothing to do, you just go lit those things on fire. And it's right next to an electric pole. So one day, somebody's gonna, hopefully not, but we need another sprinkler to be installed there to irrigate that section, which is all dried out. Plus, I was told by my neighbors, what happened to the street sweepers? We haven't had a street sweeper in years. Passed through there. We got weeds growing all over town, and it looks terrible. It looks like a ghost town almost, like nobody cares no more.
It's been repaired, though.
So hopefully, all these things will be looked into this time.
Thank you.
For a while, the sweeper wasn't repaired, but now it's being repaired. It is repaired, but it's manpower. We need to find our manpower. But it is working, so we'll try hopefully to get the streets swept again.
Okay, thank you, and I hope this time some kind of action will be taken.
Thank you.
Let's not wait for some children or somebody to get hurt or something bad.
Thank you, Mr.
Absolutely
Garcia.
correct.
Thank you.
Francisco Andrade.
Hello, Honorable Mayor and Honorable Council members. My name is Francisco Andrade. I created Imperial County Hemp Cannabis Coalition. It's a group of people who are very interested in the cannabis plant. But I'm here for myself and a few other groups, members. The deliveries, I'm here for the deliveries and saying what is our issue, our county's, our city's issue regarding permits for deliveries and the small business community who are very eager in getting into this industry. And to let you know more, I'm a client to the Small Business Development Center. Mr. Guillermo is my business advisor. So he's not here present, but in this city, in this county, there's 21,000 residents who voted in legalizing cannabis here. We're one of the communities that didn't pass this county, but still, there's 21,000 residents who need a voice. And there's more to say, but I'll cut it short. I have a resolution that I'm drafting to present to my council to see what's in the process before January 2018. And I'm very eager to support my city. And if revenue comes through, I would like to support my fire department because 20% of revenue goes to law enforcement and 60% goes to education. And I'm wondering if when we do tax this plant, that the fire department gets a cut out of it, so we will have a long-term solution for them when it comes to trying to fire them or so forth, but we do have a backup solution, so in other words. And there's more to say, but I'll cut it short, and thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll be around.
Next, we have Mr. John Renison.
Honorable City Council, Mayor, members of the council, Honorable City Manager, Carlos, everybody. I'm happy to report that the city, the county, and the ID are getting very close to drafting a final MOU on the New River Improvement Project. You probably had discussions. It closed an open session on that. We have a conference call tomorrow at 2 p.m., at which time the city and the county and the ID will get together every 2 weeks at 2 p.m. So as not to violate the Brown Act, elected officials are asked to keep it to 2 from each entity there. And basically tomorrow we have an update with the state, the IID, the county, and the city on the New River Improvement Project. So that's going pretty well. I'm happy to report it looks like all 3 entities, including you, from what I understand, were on board with a financial commitment for what they call the operation and management of it. I'm not speaking out of turn, am I, Armando? Anyway, 2 of us are on board financially. The IID and the county have committed to support this project, the tune of $50,000 each for the duration of either 10 or 20 years, but we're trying to get clarification on that. Not to exceed $50,000 a year. That's basically what it amounts to. Also want to bring to your attention, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, you have a 110th anniversary coming up next year. That's going to be a historic time. I happened to be the mayor during the 100th, and it was a great deal. We formed a committee in the fall of 2007. We raised $10,000, $15,000. There was money then, and the city put in $5,000, and I think we raised maybe $15,000 or $20,000. We were able to put up banners and things of that nature. Had a lot of events at Rodney Auditorium. Had pins like Mr. Real has on his lapel there. So I'm just hoping that maybe this fall you could be thinking about appointing a committee for the 110th anniversary, which will be in March, April, and it comes very quickly.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that
Yeah.
because we were going to come to you for the fireworks in case you wanted to support.
Last thing, I want to congratulate the county workforce development and San Diego State and pat myself on the back because I also help with the interns at the county. We place 8 interns every semester, and they're great. They're fantastic. They want to work. They've got their degree. They're hungry. We have interns working right now. After they've completed their internship, they stay on because they're told, you know, this is the way you get your foot in the door and you get noticed. And I'm just glad that the public administration program is so strong and it's growing. And the master's program is going to come back one of these days, like Dr. Ponce said. I happen to be one of the graduates of the master's program back in 1996, so I know how successful it is. But you have a great group of students, and hopefully we can continue to support them. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Moving to next speaker, John Kim.
Hi, my name is Jun Kim. Congratulations, City of Calexico. They're working together with our local kids, local students, to bring them the opportunity and the saving hours, the last overloaded jobs. And I believe that one is because that this kind of movement to spread the whole the county, wide all the cities, so they can give the chance to train our young people for the future. And also, I try to not to tell the negative things, but when I quickly see in the city budget, there's some kind of a questionable numbers been displayed, the budget showing the negative. And one of the things, and our city doesn't know how to spend the money. They don't know how to, our city doesn't know how to saving the monies. That's why we're in big trouble. And even they don't know how to implementing to where to go the money. And City of Calexico, so many tribes, little Indians. That's why we lack of the community service. And I believe some of the positions, they used to be handled by one person. Now they have about 3-4 persons spreading the positions. So that clearly, in a way, that we don't have not good ability employees, or we have so much big on top and the less employees. The soldiers, they are the ones who's serving the community. They are ordering, but there's no soldiers, no jobs for the communities. And also, they was targeting the budget cut, always targeting budget cut for the low salary employees. They don't have power. They have to be signed, they have to be accepted because they've been pressured. But what about the mid-class or high salary ends? And we were talking about the last time we were talking about the city council members, they're talking about the city managers should not be cut it. He's doing too much work. The city don't have money. City council has to be wisely to, city's job is serving the community. If we fail to do our job to the community, that means we don't need the city. Think about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comment, Chabelita Wong.
I couldn't find it.
A ver si lo alcanzo, a ver si me alcanza.
Sí se mueve.
Pues mucho gusto de estar aquí con ustedes, que ya tenía rato que no venía, y felicidades para los nuevos. Pero me interesa mucho todavía, y a ustedes yo creo que también, la transportación de los seniors. ¿Quién está encargado aquí de la ciudad? Porque tenemos una transportación peor que antes. Y yo creo que ustedes no se dan cuenta porque no van al comedor, al community center, a dar una platicadita allí con las personas. A mí me pasa muy seguido. Tenemos que llamar 2-3 semanas antes para tener un appointment. Yo llamé ayer, quiero un appointment para el viernes a las 7 de la mañana. Me dijeron, hable dentro de 1 hora porque ahorita estamos ocupados. y no es la primera vez que me pasa. Digo, yo todavía puedo marcar el número, todavía puedo hablar, pero hay muchas personas que van al comedor, que no tienen celular, ni tienen como, como decimos, un teléfono para hablar. Antes llamábamos hoy, decíamos mañana voy a ir al comedor. Ok, nos apuntaban por toda la semana. El día que no íbamos a ir, hablábamos, no voy a ir al comedor, no me recoja. Ahora no, ahora tiene que hablar 2, 3 días para que vayan a recogerlo mañana, pasado mañana. Luego tienen que terminar de comer y hablar para que vayan a recogerlos, porque si no están en la lista, no lo recogen. Entonces, está bastante mal ese servicio para nosotros del comedor. Pero si alguno de ustedes tuviera un tiempecito y pudiera ir a platicar ahí, qué bueno. Pero si ustedes no tienen tiempo, pues ahí se los dejo, es su tarea. Porque no soy la única que hablo, aquí sí. ¿Por qué? Porque yo no tengo miedo, no les debo nada. Tengo un pendientito por ahí pendiente, pero eso se lo voy a traer después, si no se me resuelve, porque ya tenemos tiempo con ese pendientito. Pero ahorita nomás es lo del comedor, lo de la transportación de los niños. Tenemos como 20 mesas ahí, no, se llenaba, porque no teníamos que terminar de comer y llamar que vinieran por nosotros, porque se supone que nos retrataron y nos hicieron un ID para tenernos ahí. ¿Para qué? Para presentarlo en alguna parte y decir, todos estos niños les damos transportación, pues son mentiras. Todas estas mesas, 20 mesas, se llenaban para ir a comer. Ahora, si se llenan 3 mesas, es mucho, por culpa de la transportación, porque la mayoría no tienen carro y ya están personas mayores. Yo vivo a 2 cuadras, por eso les digo, yo no estoy haciendo exactamente por mí, estoy haciendo por mis compañeros. Y me gustaría que fueran un día que no va que van las personas que no tienen miedo a hablar, porque la mayoría tienen miedo a hablar porque, no sé, yo no, ya la mayoría de ustedes me conocen que yo hablo.
Señora Wong, ¿a qué hora se reúnen ahí para que el concilio sepa?
La comida la empieza, bueno, llegan ahí las personas desde las 10:30, la comida la sirven a las 11:30 y otra cosa, antes, la transportación que estaba antes, iban 12:45 o a la 1 por nosotros. Ahora, hay veces que ni terminamos de comer cuando ya el camión ya está ahí. ¿Por qué? Porque si no lo recoge a ese horario, ya no regresan por esas personas. De modo que tienen que comer, no sé cómo, porque como yo como despacio, pero como les digo, vivo muy cerquitas, entonces pues no le hace, pero las personas que comen despacio tienen que, con perdón de ustedes, tienen que tragarse la comida para ir corriendo a agarrar la transportación.
Ok.
Gracias.
Gracias. That's all we have for public comments.
Mr. Mayor? I'll carry out my responsibility and bring it up at ICTC, this issue, and about the time, Guanabasa, and maybe you and I can go visit them next week.
Okay.
She wants to make a comment about what she just said, and so do I.
Sure.
Buenas tardes, señora Chabelita. El programa de transportación el cual usted está hablando está bajo nuestro programa para las comidas congregativas nada más. Entonces, esta queja que usted vino a poner aquí, yo la voy a llevar conmigo, porque ellos tienen que honrar su horario de ustedes, recogerlos, no hay por qué estar en una lista, porque hay suficiente dinero que les pagamos cada mes para que los traigan a los comedores y los regresen a sus casas. Y aparte, el horario, ya nos habían dicho que los estaban recogiendo muy temprano, les llamamos la atención, supuestamente iban a llegar, no sé, media hora más tarde, por lo mismo que dice usted, que nada más les daban un poquito tiempo de comer, algunos comen rápido y unos comen muy despacio. Se les llamó la atención sobre eso, más sin embargo, no sé si siguieron, ¿verdad?, monitoreándolos, pero me voy a llevar los comentarios a la oficina el día de mañana para darle seguimiento a esta queja. Pero si tiene alguna otra queja, en los comedores están los números de teléfonos de nuestras oficinas. Puede llamar a cualquier hora, o sea, de 7:30 a 5:30, porque esos son nuestros horarios, y puede ser llamada anónima, no tiene que dar su nombre, y nada más quejarse, porque esas son las cosas que ocupamos. Al momento de que vayamos a negociar de nuevo el contrato, tenemos que saber qué son los puntos en los que ellos están fallando. Perfecto.
Thank you. Thank you, Carla. Can I just make a comment real quick? Last year, the council did see the changes in the county program because there was a different provider providing, Spanish. Nosotros sí miramos el año pasado todo lo que se hizo de los cambios, miramos que hubo esos cambios a un diferente sistema. Creo que el concilio es bien importante entender ella como clienta del servicio, qué es lo que ella se queja, y entender de qué forma ellos reestructuraron el programa. Tuvimos que entender cómo era, y es una ruta, básicamente, y por eso la necesidad de tener que pedir cita o programarse con tiempo por adelantado, porque es una ruta. Es poquito rígido su manera de ellos manejarse en ese diferente estructura que tuvimos. Las tuvieron que identificar porque es un programa federal, de condado, y es para estadísticas y para que también se identifiquen como usuarios. Entonces, es bien importante sí entender qué es lo que ella dice, pero como dice la señorita, es un programa del condado. Pero sí estamos aquí para ayudarle y escucharla, ¿verdad? Porque nos estuvieron envolviendo mucho en el conocimiento. Muy importante, y ojalá que podamos seguir ayudándola para que esté un poquito mejor el servicio. ¿Cómo no? Hay que tratar. Gracias. Thanks, Carla.
Okay, moving on to City Council comments. I'll start on my left with Councilman Escobar.
Last Monday, I attended my Calexico Rotary meeting, and I had our program was Todd Fennell, who is the county superintendent for schools, ICOE. He made a great presentation, and one of the things that I loved about the presentation is that there is a project in place which would be directly southwest of their current location, if I'm remembering my coordinates correctly, where they're going to build a soccer facility, 16 soccer fields. I believe it's 13 full-size, and I believe there's 3 like mini soccer fields. It'll be for the entire county. Obviously, the funding isn't quite yet, but they expect funding within a year or two. And if it happens, it's going to be a regional hub. It'll alleviate the stress for soccer fields in Calexico, El Centro, Brawley, Imperial, the entire Imperial County. Not only that, but it'll also be a financial, economic stream for them to hold tournaments that bring about 15, 20, 25,000 people from San Diego County, LA County, the Phoenix area, the Vegas area. So hopefully it'll happen. Todd was very optimistic, and obviously I'm optimistic with him. I told him to come to the city and make a presentation. He plans to do the bandwagon through all the cities. I think it's a windfall if this happens for the county of Imperial, to which we are a part of. I also attended a California-Arizona Cattlemen's Association conference, the yearly conference held in San Diego. again, wearing my business hat more so than my council hat, but also trying to spur any and all economic development for the city. I also attended a Cali Baja board meeting. For you that aren't aware, Cali Baja is the mega region to which the 5 counties or 5 cities, municipalities in Mexico, in Baja California specifically, Mexicali, Tecate, Tijuana, Rosarito, and Ensenada, as well as the county of Imperial and the county of San Diego are part of. We had our yearly board meeting, or a quarterly board meeting. And again, the point of the story is to try to market the entire region to the world. That's all my comments. Thank you.
Councilman Hodge?
Yes. I had the honor of being appointed from this council on ICTC. And from ICTC, I asked if I could be a part of SCAG. And I sit on the Community Economic Human Development Committee, Energy and Environmental Committee. No, excuse me, just the Human Development Committee. And the last meeting was very interesting, and I'm just going to try to make this short. And Mr. City Manager, I'm sure you're aware of it, but there were 2 sources of money that we could get our hands on or work on, and indulge me to read a little, and that will be it. Number 1, following the dissolution of RDAs in 2012, numerous legislative bills were introduced to guide and ensure as much as possible an orderly dissolution process and to provide local government with other potential structures to use tax increment finance for local economic development. Among them was SB 628, signed into law September 29, 2014, and AB 2, signed into law on September 22nd. They empower local jurisdictions to form, and you actually mentioned this, enhanced infrastructure finance districts, EIFDs, and establish community revitalization and investment authorities, such known as CRIA, to finance infrastructure investment through tax increment financing. And there's more. I have the formal literature. I'll get it to you, Mr. City Manager. There's another program, and it's under the Gato Act. Sounds like mafioso a little bit, but in some ways, the Gato Act provides powers broader than those provided by the Polanco Act. Perhaps most important, the Gato Act can be used anywhere within a city or county's jurisdiction. And what they're referring to is, with the elimination of redevelopment agency again, they struck a major blow against the abilities of cities to attack blighted, contaminated properties, because it effectively eliminated the Polanco Act. So the Gato Act is taken over, and the Gato Act passed in 2013, essentially replaces it and providing powers to cities and counties almost identical. But the Gato Act is not only a tool available to public entities, but a powerful, rarely used provision of the federal resource conservation. In other words, contaminated land can turn a profit for the city, and under the Gato Act. So I have literature on that for you, Mr. City Manager. And just one more comment. I heard, Mr. City Manager, that unfortunately our chief of police was not able to get the information from you. Could you please just briefly tell us where we are on the status of the fifth supposedly police officer that we should be replacing?
A 5th one?
This is council comments, and we can possibly address this in city manager comments, or?
Let me get with HR. I think they were in the process of recruiting police officers, so let me see where they're at on that.
Okay. Well, I would just say then, if we could just make sure the chief is informed. I know we're all busy, and I'm not pointing fingers here. It's just a matter of getting together and communicating.
Thank you.
I failed to mention one comment. Thank you, Mayor, for getting back to me. We have multiple properties, and this has been discussed before multiple times. We have multiple properties in Calexico. I'll name a few. The previous Burger King facility on Imperial Avenue, their previous car lot in front of, or on the northeast end of Imperial Avenue, and I believe it's Grant Avenue. Our old Hometown Buffet facility. Just multiple properties, the old Che Juan Guadalajara building, either extremely dirty, weeds all over the place. I mean, you're talking, it looked like cornfields almost. It is extremely disappointing from a city perspective to drive through those streets, to have our community see those facilities that are just so dilapidated, whether it be through fines or through some sort of city mechanism where we can clean those up or do something about those. It would behoove us to do it. Thank you.
If I may interject real quick, on a positive note, I commend you, City Manager and Public Works, for cleaning the entrance, doing the cleaning of the entrance of the city. It's looking good, and I'm looking forward to it being completed.
Councilman Pacheco?
Just briefly, I had a chance to attend a chamber meeting last week, and they reported on their mariachi festival. It was quite a success, and they made a little bit of money. They paid all their bills. Now they're getting ready for their lava lamp awards, and I think that's in June.
June 29?
Also attended a League of Cities. We got a chance to boast and toast with our fellow county members, and Dr. Ponce was there and gave a more detailed presentation on San Diego State, and he's doing exactly what he said he would do, come to the chambers and council chambers and introduce himself. I'm glad to see that we're seeing work on 5th Street and Rockwood. It looks as if we've got a lot of movement going on in the city, plus 98. We're looking like a vibrant city again, trying to get things fixed and getting our roadways taken care of. Another issue, when is Cardenas coming in? I pass by there just about every 2 days, and is it going to be a soft opening or a full-blown opening?
It's on the 25th, Mr. Pacheco. On the 25th.
Oh, okay, well, thank you. But, yeah.
They're under pressure, but yeah, they said at the end of the month.
They're working on the parking lots, putting in new cement for cars and
It's looking good.
lighting, and as if, it looks like they're gearing up for opening, but we didn't get the date, so it's good to know. So are we going to make is the city going to go down there and do ribbon cutting?
I hope so.
Cities don't do ribbon cuttings.
I know chambers, but we need to be involved with that because we want to welcome all our new
We
business.
can cut a tortilla or something.
Do something, get quesos with tortillas. That's it.
They are trying to coordinate with the city to have a soft opening, I believe is the last week of June. And we're waiting to hear back on the specifics.
Soft opening.
Yeah. They still have a lot of work to do. They're working away, and so we'll see if it happens.
Good.
Councilwoman Hurtado?
I know I always get myself in trouble a little bit about the things that come out of me, but, the comments that are being said right now today and yesterday, I've also been driving around and seeing that we have a lot of activity going on with the improvements to our streets, and that's excellent. As you all know, as a city, we are searching for a permanent position for our, did you say it was going to be Public Works / engineer, or those two separate?
Public Works Director.
Okay. And so, we are gearing towards that, and for many years, I know that has been a concern for the city, is a stronger Public Works Department. As you all know, we did lose our Public Works Director last year for unknown reasons, but, that kind of stuff that occurs within an administration has made differences for us, but we're getting it back. One concern, though, that I did have with regard to the construction is the concerns I've been telling the city manager was the concerns about the public safety around these construction sites, the signage and and the traffic control. And I've been taking some pictures as far as where I caught myself yesterday in the middle of everything. And I have this huge truck coming at me on Fifth Street going the wrong way. So I think that probably all of the different agencies that come to Calexico to please understand it's all happening at the same time, and that it is important that they learn to also respect our citizens and the safety of our citizens, and I believe you brought that up already. So that was only one thing I noticed. Besides that, bring it on. I think that's exactly what we need to do, is to strengthen the projects that the city has been lacking. I know that that department does have funding, so there's nothing to stop us. So watch out, here we go. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to take the time to touch on a few subjects and kind of put the meetings attended on the back burner. But again, I want to thank the city manager, San Diego State, and the county for this program that helped us with these students. One of the things that I always attend the San Diego State graduations, and you see 300 kids, graduating. Well, not all kids, but graduates, and you can't help to think, but what percentage of those are actually staying in the valley? And I'm thinking it's possibly less than 10%. And so it behooves us to try and keep those educated, young, future leaders here in the valley. And that's not to say that people from the outside can't come in and do good work, but if you're from here and your family's from here, you have a vested interest in the city, and I always believe that matters. So again, my hat's off to those three entities for getting together and doing something. Street sweepers, I know it's something that's very important. Mr. Garcia touched on that today, and I wanna tell the council that we should definitely start looking into that. We definitely need it. Parks and lights, again, something brought up today. I have toured some parks, and I do notice that our lights are out on many, and I know that's not a city issue, it's an IID issue. So hopefully, there has to be some collaboration from our public works people to, if they see a light out, why wait till the citizen calls and says, hey, there's a light out? There's got to be some correlation between IID and our city public works to make sure and call and say, hey, these lights are out, IID, come and fix them. One thing that was brought to me also is possibly helping our Vincent Memorial is having some issues with Rodriguez Field as far as the baseball program. And they've been asking some council members, I don't think I'm the only one, to be able to use that park for practice. And so hopefully if we can get Vincent Memorial on board with the city to help them on their program, I think that would be, you've been approached as well. I also wanted to, I want to let the citizens know that, as you all can see, we are definitely working. We have sidewalks being done all over the place, specifically around 5th Street and all the south east area, sidewalks being done all over the place. We have, and I just want them to know that to bear with us. I know that the main artery, 98 and Cesar Chavez right now is closed. It's creating havoc all over the place, and the only thing I can tell the people is bear with us. These are growing pains that the city is going through that at the end, they're going to be beneficial for everybody. So I know everybody's upset. They're driving. They're getting late to work, late to school. It's happening to all of us. And so I just want everybody to know that those are growing pains. We're going to get through them and hopefully make help. Yeah. So again. And that's it. Thank you. Let's move on to consent. I'm sorry, city manager report?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, you took words right out of my mouth. I was going to let you know that in the community, I'm sure that well aware that we have a lot of construction going on in every segment of the city, either by the federal government, by the state or by us. So, we're asking, just as you asked the public, to be very patient with the inconvenience. But I think at the end of the day, the results are going to be really beneficial to the city. We're going to have brand-new streets. We're going to have brand-new port of entry. And we're going to continue to work on public works year-round as we begin to roll out our capital improvement program. So be patient and bear with us. And I'd like to take a little bit of time to introduce to you our latest addition, our contract city engineer, David Dale. You want to raise your hand?
Welcome.
He's very experienced in civil engineering, capital projects, water and sewer. And let me tell you, when we brought him on board, we told him, you're going to have to hit the ground running. I think you said I hit the ground sprinting because there was a lot to do, and he dove in there, and he's becoming a very valuable member of our team. So we welcome you. And
Would you like to come up and say some words?
Anything to say.
That one doesn't work, so
That one doesn't work.
we need an engineer to fix that. Maybe you can.
I didn't prepare anything to say, but there are a lot of exciting things happening in the city. You've already started a lot of good projects, and we're just jumping in and making those things, pushing forward. Like Ed mentioned earlier today, it's almost like a low-hanging fruit. We're just going to pick it and we're going to make it work.
Awesome.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
Do you have any questions for me or anything that you want to?
No? Just welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Consent agenda. All matters listed under consent agenda are to be considered routine by the Calexico City Council, Calexico Redevelopment Successor Agency, or Calexico Financing Authority, and will be enacted in one motion in the form listed. Any item may be removed from the consent calendar and considered separately by the City Council. Does anybody wish to remove any item?
I want to remove item number 12.
Yeah, that's what I want.
Item 12, we will remove item 12. I'll make a motion to approve 9, 10, 11, 13, and 14. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're pulling item 12,
Just
correct?
12.
Okay. We'll ask you, yeah. We'll have a speak,
You need to lead them speak first.
come on up. And actually, we have someone on item 12, too. Yeah.
Well,
Three?
I believe that even the consent agenda, public comment first.
Just have two. No, that's public.
Pertaining to the warrants, right, Mr. Kim?
Yes.
Okay, item 10. Go ahead.
And I always try to do this one, put it on the warrant, but right now, I believe that with the deletion of our financial departments, our bank is like persistent in the current information we have already. So I like to see the one included, the one included our revenue increasement, current revenue, and the current balance, include the project money, money too. So general fund revenue and the project money money we received it, and the balance and the current balance, how much after we spend it, how much we spend money is left over from the general fund or each project money. Because we don't have money, we have to see every council member see costly and see how much, what is current status of our budget, which is how much money we received it, how much money we have, and how much we spending. And when I was a school board, the school, the 2010, 2011, the schools has very issues. So we put it in implementing every one system. We have the revenue, current revenue, and current balance. So beside the general fund and the project money. So council member or public can see closely how much, where is our status. So I like to see that on our own to public and plus especially council members can see the current status. And I believe we couldn't do because our record is not in current. And I believe we are current, our record is being current, so we can do that so we can make the better decision for the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to ask did you have a question regarding the warrants?
Well, that's what
Do you have a question about the warrants?
Yes.
That is a council issue regarding.
As a public, I'm suggesting to vote.
Oh, you're suggesting, okay, all right, thank you. Just want to make clarification.
Notwithstanding, I think it's a good idea.
There's a motion to approve 9, 10, 11, 13, and 14. There was a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Item 12 was pulled. Request authorization to solicit proposal for false alarm billing, education services. City Manager, could you elaborate on that?
If we pull, also, we would like to ask for any questions.
You want to do it?
If we pull, we're requesting to pull, we're going to ask the question. But you don't know what our question is.
No, that's
Is that the
PD.
number 12?
Number
Yes.
12, yeah. If
Okay,
you can
so yes,
elaborate on it, and then the council
The
can.
request here is to authorization to go to an RFP to be able to solicit contractors so they can assist the city in doing the false alarm billing. And then there's a component of education. There's a lot of companies that sell an alarm system, and they rely on us, public safety, to go and deal with the alarm calls. And what we find is that a lot of them are false alarms. So we have to be able to develop a mechanism to recover the cost associated to going to a false alarm, once they exceed a certain amount of false alarms, right? And also to be able to develop a way to bill those residents and those companies that sell those alarms to provide that service so that we can try to recoup the costs associated with attending to false alarms. So anyways, we're trying to go out to RFP and solicit. There's a lot of companies out there that provide this business. We're trying to find the most appropriate and cost-effective way to do it.
Okay. Questions?
Yes, City Manager, we were talking a little earlier about that. Oh, no, we didn't get to talk about that one.
No.
Okay. We haven't implemented that in a long time, as far as the monitoring and things like that, and I know it's a good revenue source. But I think that maybe when we actually are going to decide to implement that we involve our bid for some ideas, because, for example, lately your alarms are very modern, and like I have a little fob. It's a remote. So sometimes I'll like have it in my pocket or something, and by accident, it'll, just like you do other dialing by accident of other things, sometimes you have those kinds of things. So I think that, and that just happened to me, and the police showed up, and, everyone was concerned. So I think that maybe understanding where we all out here and when we're doing business and when those things can happen involuntarily, sometimes, yeah, you didn't do it right or you put the wrong code, but at least that discussion with business owners as far as bid, to kind of get a little bit of their feedback. Definitely need to do that.
May I just make a suggestion? I don't know if I guess maybe different alarms companies sell different alarms, but I do know about the key fob that they give you. But I believe the alarm company still calls you, and if you don't answer them, then I guess they do dispatch. But there is probably there is some truth that, is there a way to send letters to, all the businesses, or how do we get, I guess my question is, now that we are going to implement it, and I think it's a great idea to implement it, how do we let everybody know? Because right now, I do know in the past, there used to be 3 calls, And I think the third call in a year, you would get charged or something like that. But we need to not just implement, but also let the people know, hey, you know, this is going on. How do we do that effectively?
Here comes the chief.
The bid.
Well, the bid only does downtown, but what about homeowners, you know, everybody? Residents, yeah. I mean,
We can use the water
bid
bill,
is
right?
only yeah, we can use the water bill.
Chief?
Well, the request for proposal in the paperwork indicates it's going to be an educational process besides a building process. And I just want to make it very clear, it's not our job to respond to false calls. It's an expenditure of city's taxpayers' money, and it draws us away from the real crime. So this is just a request for proposals to see who could bring us a more feasible package to enforce an existing ordinance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
I just want to commend, I think it's an excellent idea, and I want to commend and thank everybody involved, but especially Gonzalo, Lieutenant Gonzalo Geraldo, because I'd spoken to him, and I thought what he was pitching was a great idea, but I know he's not the only one that was involved, so I wholeheartedly support this.
Since there's different companies that sell alarms, we need to provide some type of information out to the companies that we're going to be doing something like this in the near future. But there's all kinds of alarm companies that need to be brought in and informed. I don't know how we're going to do that.
Okay.
And like the chief said, it's an educational process also.
Right, and it's not the city's obligation to provide the education, it's the alarm company's obligation. Just as you purchase a product, the instructions should come with it.
Actually, most alarm companies have in their contract, it does say that you're responsible if the false alarms, that whatever, because different cities charge different amounts. So I do remember reading that on a contract. So I don't know if we need to let them know, but I think it's important to let the people know. And so whether we can use our water bill or maybe put it in the newspaper, could we do that? Put it in the newspaper, our Facebook page, you know, make sure, do our best. Obviously, if we can't reach everybody.
That would be part of the education process,
Okay.
that the request for proposal, and when it's approved, they would do that.
Okay. All right, so if there's no more questions, I would like to make a motion to approve item 12.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Discussion and potential action items. Item 15, appointment by City Council Member Luis Pacheco to Economic Development Financing Authority Commission.
The name I have is Enrique Ramirez.
Enrique Ramirez.
Enrique Ramirez.
Okay. Moving on to item 16, discussion of preliminary budget 2017-18. And we have a comment, Mr. Kim. Oh, now you want to come in at the end, okay.
Mr. Mayor, I don't know if you want to sit on this side. It's going to be probably about 10 slides, and
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Susan Mayer. I'm a financial consultant for the city, and I'm here to introduce to you projections for the general fund for the upcoming fiscal year. Tonight's presentation is the first of a series of workshops to introduce the City Council to the upcoming budget, to consider and ultimately adopt a budget for the coming year. This City Council has invested considerable time in the past 2 years to dive into the city's financial affairs, and I have to believe that the City Council is as well informed as many as they approach their budget. And so now once a year, you get a fresh slate, a clean slate to approach and allocate resources for the fiscal year. Tonight's presentation is not a proposed budget, and I want to differentiate between a projection and a proposed budget. What we have for you is projections, a series of assumptions, and basically a baseline projection. If you were to do nothing, what would it take to, what is the cost of the existing city services, and what are the revenues that we think that will be available to fund those services? Now, the problem is that they don't match, right? The costs exceed the revenues, and so we have a gap, and that's part of the strategy here that we will walk through with you during the upcoming budget workshops. So tonight, we're going to start with the general fund. So our objectives tonight, we're going to focus on the trends and assumptions that we are addressing for the general fund. I do want to emphasize that tonight's presentation is about the general fund in isolation. It does not include Measure H. A number of times the city has considered budget projections that have incorporated both the general fund and the Measure H. But tonight we are focusing on the general fund. There is not a lot of excess in the Measure H fund when you look at the revenues and then take away the debt service and the salary funding commitments that have been made against them. There is a small surplus, but for this particular projection, we have set that aside, and we are focusing strictly on general fund revenues and the services that are currently supported with the general fund. Through our presentation tonight, we will quantify what the budget gap is. We will talk again about why it's particularly important for this city at this time to adopt a balanced budget. And it has to do with the fact that this is a city without reserves. And so you face a more difficult choice than many other cities who have the luxury to either draw from reserves, add to, or draw from reserves. You're in a different situation because of the overspending in this particular city. Finally, we're going to introduce strategies that are available to the council to rebalance the budget, and then we'll talk about the timeline to get to the finish line with an adopted budget. This presentation is for discussion only. There's no proposed action in front of the City Council tonight. The handout that we have provided to you introduces a number of topics, and the next few slides, I just want to at a very high level introduce some of the assumptions that were used. In the packet that has been handed to you, and again, this packet was just published this afternoon, so we understand that the council and the public is not familiar with the information and will need time to dig into and drill into it and develop questions that they want to come back with. But at this point, we're going to introduce the assumptions and then point to information in the back of the packet that drills down and provides you actually line item detail with respect to individual revenues and the program costs. But let's start with the major assumptions for revenues. And we're going to talk about the revenue trends both for the current fiscal year, the 16-17 fiscal year, and also for the upcoming fiscal year. Revenues continue to be flat. In fact, the tax revenue projections, and we just recently received the last of the county checks for property tax for the fiscal year. Our tax projections are now actually slightly less than they were at mid-year. We came to you in, I think it was April or May, with a mid-year adjustment that was intended to balance the fiscal year, and since then we have continued to see an erosion of the revenues. But interestingly enough, even though we are lowering the projections, they are still higher. The baseline revenues are still higher than what they were a year ago. This particular fiscal year, 16-17, you have benefited from two one-time events, the Heffernan Grant, and there was a land sale by the successor agency, a portion of which has come back to your city's general fund. And the reason that that's important to emphasize is that our budget, through the last budget amendment, was balanced using those one-time funds. And so when we look to the upcoming fiscal year, we take those two revenue streams out, we're automatically out of balance again, and further out of balance for some other reasons. I want to draw your attention to one additional key date that will happen next week. 4 times a year, the State Board of Equalization releases quarterly sales tax. And when sales tax is a particularly important revenue source for this city, when you combine the general fund and the Measure H funds together, it's about 40% of your discretionary spending. So that's a key milestone, and so we'll be looking closely at the calendar for when those results are available. And when we come back to you for the next workshop, we will be able to incorporate that new information about that sales tax trend. I'm very concerned about sales tax, not only for this city, but statewide. Many cities are seeing a flattening of sales tax. Our retail habits, consumer retail habits, are changing. with the growth of internet sales, et cetera. And so cities that are highly dependent on this particular sales tax are seeing a flattening of their revenue and have not, either a slowing of growth or flattening of revenue. And so we want to very carefully consider the most recent quarter for this city. That's next Friday, those results will be released. So stepping into 17-18, what does it look like here? Basically flat. We base the projections based on input from your consultant. You have a firm called HDL that provides detailed analysis on your property tax and your sales tax. They look at individual retail segments and property transactions and make recommendations to the city on the revenue projections. The bottom line is the city continues to have approximately $14 million a year in baseline revenues. When you add all the sources together, they do tick up slightly from the prior year. However, we're still at about a $14 million revenue level. And without the one-time benefits that we had in 16-17, the total revenues will actually drop from the prior year. So what does that mean? Well, what can the city expect for revenues in the future? We always hope there will be development. We hope that things are happening in Calexico and that we can be optimistic for the future. But the reality is that many cities across the state are bracing for an economic slowdown. Will this happen in 17-18 or maybe 18-19? Certainly one year or another, sooner rather than later, the city will need to brace for an economic downturn. Without reserves, you are particularly exposed here, and that's why budget monitoring is very important to continually look at the revenues that we have in front of us. So let's move on from revenues to the cost of services, and we'll start with salaries and benefits. The projections in front of you assume staffing of 149 positions. And here's an important statement. We assume that all the authorized positions will be filled. One of the ways that the 16-17 budget was balanced was because the city had a number of vacant positions. And this was across all departments. There's natural turnover in any city, but you balanced your budget based on the fact that you had positions that were vacant. So as we assume that those positions are filled and that you are maximizing the service from the positions you have authorized, now we have another budget hit because now we are increasing the cost for those vacant positions. The City Council may choose to continue to freeze or defer hiring as part of its budget balancing solution, but we start with the assumption that all those positions will be filled. There are 3 net additions to the employee count in the projections, of which approximately half of those are in the general fund. And these positions have been designed to invest in your future through economic development by appointing an economic development director, and that's actually a change of a prior position. Focusing on capital improvements through the public works director position. And really when you think about the money that the city has available to spend, although there is pressure on your operating budget in the general fund, you have many capital funds that have significant fund balances that are available for the City Council to deploy through its capital improvement program to generate activity, construction, and development in town. So by investing in additional position to support this program, you can only anticipate benefits that will return back to the city. Finally, there are 2 positions in the accounting and customer service support area. These are functions that have been backfilled by temporary staff, so it's really a shift of budget dollars from backfilling temporary positions to full-time staff with the benefits that come along with that from sustained employee support and training. So with these staffing assumptions, let's move on to compensation levels and just reiterate for everyone what the assumptions are in the budget with respect to the significant concessions that your employees contributed to your budget solution in the 16-17 year. Right now, the projections assume that the negotiated contract concessions will continue for the next fiscal year. Each of your groups negotiated different concessions, except for the fire department. And so again, the projections do not assume any reductions at this point for the fire department because they have not been negotiated. And again, that's subject to the city's negotiation strategy, but at this point, we're still assuming the full cost of the fire the employment packages. The police concessions were condensed into a short period of time due to the timing of when those concessions were mutually agreed upon. The projections assume that those reductions would continue but be spread across the whole fiscal year, so the individual paychecks would actually improve for that particular, but the dollar amount for this purposes of this projection have stayed the same. Two other very important elements of the compensation structure. The workers' compensation program sees significant increases in the current year for one particular reason. The JPIA, the insurance pool that the city left in 2016, January 1st, 2016, has billed the city for retrospective charges. And this is a typical practice for any insurance pool to provide a retroactive look back about any participant's participation in their claims history. This city had a bad run with claims. And so on July 1st, in just a few weeks, between the workers' compensation program and the general liability program, the city will be writing a check for over $800,000 to pay JPIA for this retrospective charge. This is just the first year. Both programs are installments, and so there will be additional charges in future years, but this is the largest of the installments. So the workers' comp rates are large, not because of the claims history. In fact, your claims history since you have become self-employed has actually been very low for both the workers' comp and the general liability programs. You have realized significant savings, at least on a very short-term basis. We can't say that for a long-term basis because claims history does vary from year to year. You've had a short-term savings. However, you are stuck with these large bills for JPIA, and for those reasons, the workers' comp rates in the coming year are much higher than they have been in the past. For those of you who speak actuarial terminology, the workers' comp program assumes a 50% confidence level on the claims experience in the coming year. Your actuary has provided those claims estimates. And in the past, you have used a more conservative 70% confidence level. For the purposes of these projections, we are using the slightly higher risk, 50% confidence level. And here's the reason why. The actuaries are extrapolating based on years of history, including years in which you have had some very high claims. There's clearly been a drop-off on your claims experience that has not yet been reflected in the actuarial's projections. And so for those reasons, we are including just the 50% confidence on the actuarial projections of the workers' comp claims. The last employee compensation element I want to focus on is the pension unfunded actuarial liability. You've heard presentations from your auditor speaking to these debts, these pension debts. And just as a refresher, the unfunded actuarial liability represents all the actuarial underestimates from the past for employees and retirees' past service credit. The city owes a significant burden, like every other CalPERS participant, owes a significant burden of debt to the pension system for actuarial assumptions that have not sufficiently sustained and funded the pension program. Because the CalPERS board recently changed the discount rate, the earnings assumption on your pension program, they will be charging you an increasing amount, and the board policy is to phase that in over 7 years. So for each of the next 7 years, you can assume a significant annual increase in this pension debt payment to CalPERS. And again, it's called the Unfunded Actuarial Liability, abbreviated as the UAAL. In this particular year, 17-18, you're seeing a $400,000 to $500,000 increase on this line, and the payment for this coming year is $1.3 million. And although that is a citywide number, it is substantially general fund because it is substantially public safety. And so, again, think about the opportunity cost. If you have to increase your payments to CalPERS by $400,000 or $500,000 each year, think of how many employees you would have to reduce every year to make up for that additional payment. If revenues are stagnant and pension costs are growing up, are increasing, what does that do to your capacity to deliver services? The finance industry is calling this crowding out. What finance directors are talking about across the state is the crowding out of local services because of this increasing pension burden. Basically, the bill is coming due on the actuarial assumptions for the CalPERS plan.
The other cost of services to focus on here on these projections are the operating costs. These are the non-salary costs. They include maintenance, supplies, contracts. The projections here are remain at about 3.8. They were 3.8 in the past year, and they are projected at 3.8 in the coming year. Now, I got to tell you that when the departments submitted their requests, this number was $1 million higher. The department requests for operating costs were closer to $5 million. There's pent-up demand for services, projects, equipment, but in order to make these projections even realistic, the city manager and the finance director have worked with the department projections and scaled them back. Not necessarily mutually agreed upon, but scaled back, again, to try to come up with a budget that maintains a fairly stable level of these operating costs. So not all the requests from the departments are being funded. $3.8 million for operating costs. General liability insurance, the conversation here follows exactly the conversation we just had about workers' compensation. Your actuary has projected a loss history, or a loss estimate for the upcoming fiscal year, but it's based on a past trend, which is what actuaries do, of years in which this city had some very large liability claims. And so for these reasons, we are using the slightly more risky 50% confidence level, and we are also including the amount you need to settle with JPAA on July 1st, the retrospective charge for past costs. The budget assumes the continued payment on the wastewater loan. A year ago at this time, the city approved an emergency loan from your wastewater fund because of emerging deficits that were appearing in your general fund. And the agreement was to repay this over a series of years, and you will be making the next payment. So although, again, you have annual operating deficits, by making this payment, you continue to strengthen and rebuild your general fund. This is the second of the 5 scheduled payments to repay the wastewater loan. The cost allocation plan, there's some news here. The finance staff has gone back and we had discussed this once before in a presentation. The city manager had us do a presentation 6 months ago about the trends in the general fund over a period of time. And when we looked into that, we realized that there were 2 fiscal years, 2013 and 14, in which the city did not use a cost allocation plan to allocate its costs to programs outside the general fund. So now we have finally caught that up, and your finance department staff has gone back and dug through the old general ledger system and put together a homegrown and cost plan that is able to generate about $750,000 to the general fund. And so you're going to be receiving a one-time benefit by going back and allocating the costs from those 2 years that had been overlooked at the time. So it's a retroactive adjustment that will help your beginning balance. And that's important because although you approved a $3.5 million loan last year, it didn't cover the gap. When the books were closed for 2016, you were actually $500,000 worse off than that loan. And our current estimate for 16-17 is that you might erode another $500,000. And so as we approach the 17-18 fiscal year, we think that there will be a shortfall in the working capital of about $1 million. This retroactive cost allocation plan entry will catch up about 2/3 of that amount. There will still be a small deficit that you'll be carrying forward, but again, this goes a long way to solving that retroactive issue. So where does that leave us? For the 17-18 year, with these assumptions, we are seeing a $3 million gap. And the first reaction I hear from many is, how can that be? We just took such a hit. We cut services. We negotiated concessions with our employee. How could we possibly still be $3 million aside? And I'm going to give you a couple of the highlights, the speaking points, to refresh everybody why this has happened. First of all, we had $760,000 of one-time monies. This was the Heffernan grant that backfilled for the fire concessions that were not achieved. And there was also a $200,000 windfall from a land sale property. Those are one-time revenues. So before you even open the door, you already have a $760,000 deficit. The other thing is that this assumption, which you can continue to assume or not, fills all the vacant positions and adds a position and a half in the general fund as well. So now you have a several million dollar impact just from filling those positions. This is a strategy, it's a choice. You can fill the positions, defer them, fill them partway through the year. There is certainly pressure from the departments to deliver services, and it's hard for them to deliver those services without these positions. But there is clear flexibility to close half this gap through management of those vacant positions. The other reason that the budget is challenged this year, you'll be paying JPAA over $800,000. So, and although that is a citywide number, the general fund has the vast majority of that as well. Finally, we have the growing pension payment, which is adding $400,000 to $500,000 a year. When you add this up, along with the other normal increases in medical expenses, operating costs, you have a $3 million deficit. So that's our projection. That's a starting point. That's why I wanted to emphasize again, this is not a proposed budget. This is a starting point, a framework for the council and its stakeholders to consider options to put this back into balance again. The page on the screen is far too small, but in your handout, you will see the same chart on page 7. This is the fund balance projection, and the only reason I have this here, and again, I apologize for those of you who are looking on the screen. Those in the audience, I hope you all have a copy of the handout. Please turn to page 7. The purpose of this slide is to just refresh your memory and show you the trends over a period of years. This particular slide shows you the inflows and outflows into the general fund going back to 14-15 through the project, and shows you the annual results up through the 17-18 projection. And there are just 2 or 3 takeaways I'd like to focus on this slide. And one is that the baseline revenues, when you pull out the one-time transfers or the one-time grants, is $14 million. This hasn't changed. Slightly ticks up each year, but this is a $14 million city. When you add in the $2 million from Measure H, it gets to be $16, $17 million. When you look at just general fund, $14 million, that's the size of the pie to allocate. It's up to the council to reflect your values, the community's values, to decide which programs you wish to support, but that's the size of the pie you have today. We hope it will change in the future, but that's what you have today. On the expenditure side, I've broken down a number of different of the cost elements in the general fund, but let's just focus on the total expenditures. Back in 14-15, this was a far different operating environment. The expenditures were $19 million. And that's why you had you had a couple years where the general fund overspent its revenues by $3 to $4 million. And I just want to show you how deep the city has gone in reducing its costs. You've gone from, and let's look at the salary line here, the filled positions, you've gone from $14 million to $10 million. You have removed $4 million of salary costs through position reductions and labor concessions. You have reduced the size of your salary investment by $4 million. On the total expenditure line, you've gone from $19 million down to the current year of $15 million. But what we see in the coming year, 17-18, is that this is creeping back up to $17 million without new revenues to pay for it. And so we are in a situation where there's a gap between the revenues and expenditures. I just hope that this highlights for you how far the city has come. Although you have a deficit, there has been real progress in reducing and turning the tide about the expenditure patterns of the city. You've dropped from $19 million to $15 million, and we need to get to $14 million because that's the baseline revenue we have going forward. So why does the city need to balance the budget? The city is in a very difficult situation because you had 2 years where you had significant overspending, and that there were many reasons that contributed to that, and we've talked about this many, many times. But the bottom line is that you drew down all the reserves and you overspent those reserves. And so you have no cushion. You have no reserve. The reason you must balance your budget is there's nowhere to go. Most cities like to establish a rainy day fund, a contingency fund, and there are many best practices about ideas about what that might be. Should it be 2 months of operations? Should it be 50% of your operations? You're a long way from getting there because you're still in the hole. You're still digging yourself out of that hole. The reason that you must have a balanced budget is that you're not able to open the doors for business on July 1st unless you have the ability and intent to pay for the services. You can't call people to work unless you have the ability to pay them. You must demonstrate that you have a balanced financial plan, a strategy to provide for the services that you are contracting for. And so for these reasons, it's very important that over the next few weeks, through these workshops, that the city articulate a plan to balance its budget beginning July 1st. So how do we do this? How do we go from a projection to a strategy? And this conversation is not unique to this city. In fact, you're probably more experienced at this than most. And other cities that are just now realizing and experiencing this flattening of revenues have a more difficult challenge. But here are some general guidelines that cities use, some of which you've already deployed. The first is to protect the basics. Although the city council is elected to provide services to your citizens, you also have a dual role, a competing role to be the fiduciary for the city. And so for these reasons, we want to be sure you have the opportunity to demonstrate sound budget principles, to balance for the long term, and to, over time, build and maintain reserves to cushion for economic cycles. That's the long-term goal. So how do you get there? Most cities need to separate core versus non-core services. What are the services that only the city can provide versus services that might be provided by another source? This city's already gone through that process. You've already cut the fluff, and now you're down to really essential services. It'd be difficult to envision a city hall with fewer people than you have right now. So then we look to cost options. What are your service delivery methods? Are there other ways to provide services that have a different cost structure? And so here we look at what the trend is, regional services. Many cities across the state are facing these CalPERS pension burdens just like you and are needing to consolidate, find economies of scale by jointly providing services with other jurisdictions. And so are there opportunities for this city? And again, these are policy choices, but at some point you need, if you can't reduce the number of employees, you need to start looking at the cost options for those services. So then the last thing, of course, is to build the revenues. What can you do to maximize your fees and your grants and provide economic development opportunities to bring new business to town? Your costs will continue to grow. So unless you intend to crowd out your services, we need to still stay focused on economic development. And for this reason, the city manager has recommended a new economic development director to enhance every opportunity you have to bring in more revenues. So what are the options for this city? What can you do in the next 3 weeks to move from a projection with a $3 million gap to a balanced budget? The easiest flexibility is with these new positions. You currently have 1.7 million of positions in your budget that are vacant. Does it make sense to fill some of these? Absolutely. Might you stagger some of these? Absolutely. Will you have new retirements and turnover? Absolutely. And so again, this is the greatest area of flexibility for the city council is the approach to the vacant positions. And it can be a modified approach. You can freeze or defer any individual positions and it's not all or nothing. This is a way to nuance your cost structure. It doesn't solve the long-term problem. And remember that in the future, those CalPERS costs are going to continue to grow. So freezing these positions is a short-term solution. It's not a long-term solution. Another option is to continue your labor group discussions. We discussed already that the fire department is the one group that has not, as I understand it, has not yet reached an agreement with the city concerning the concessions that many of the other groups have already done. I think each of your employee groups has particular provisions for the second year in their agreement. So there are perhaps opportunities to continue to discuss the compensation package with your employees. It has to, as a service organization, the largest portion of your expenditures are through the payroll, and so this has to be part of the conversation. Service reductions. Again, we come back to prioritization. What do you as council members value in terms of the services you provide to the citizens? And what services do your constituents prioritize? Service reductions have to be part of the conversation. And what are we talking about here? At one point, there was discussion of fire services and perhaps the need to revisit the number of fire companies. Look at the last bullet here, alternate regional service delivery options. Again, this is finding economies of scale by jointly providing services with other jurisdictions. What opportunities do you have here at the city? Everything from privatizing to contracting out. And these are very difficult words to say, especially when you start to talk about individual programs or people's positions or jobs. But what options are available to the city? And you have to have this conversation in order to get to a balanced budget by July 1st. You have to at least think about what these options are. And if you don't like any of them, you need to find a different solution. But options that you might have for service delivery include jointly providing dispatch services, the ambulance transport services, even law enforcement services. You need to look at every program in the city and consider how might you approach it in a different manner. All of these are very important decisions and very sensitive topics. You certainly have a range of options in front of you, and I don't mean to suggest that one or another is the right choice, but with a significant deficit that promises to grow as your CalPERS burden grows, you need to find another solution. I want to just mention a number for you. It's called a normal cost. CalPERS changed its discount rate. You're phasing in your unfunded liabilities. But did you know the normal cost of every employee you have is going to automatically jump up in 18-19 because the normal cost of every employee has changed? CalPERS circular that was published for employers January 2017 says that the average CalPERS contribution for a safety officer is going to go up 3.5%. The average cost, normal cost for a miscellaneous employee is 2%. You will automatically add to your cost burden. Will your revenues grow sufficiently to support it? I don't think so. Maybe, we hope so, but you need to brace, my point here is that you need to brace for an increasing cost burden for your workforce. And again, there are many reasons why, but the CalPERS board has made a change in their policy, and our pension programs are more expensive than they have been in the past because of those changes at the state level. And so, unfortunately, you're in a situation where you need to really think outside the box and look at all city programs in terms of your service delivery options. So what are the next steps? How do we get to the finish line here? This is our first workshop. We're introducing the general fund projection and identifying the size of the gap. We're sending you home with documents to look through so you can learn more about the costs, the revenues, and all the way down to individual line items. And I do want to mention that the packet here not only includes the general fund, it does include the detailed analysis of each of the city's insurance programs. Some of you were here when the city made its choice to be self-insured and became actuarial experts. And so for those of you who have a great deal of interest in those insurance programs, the assumptions are detailed in quite a bit of detail in the last pages of the packet that you're taking home tonight. The next workshop is tentatively scheduled for the 21st, and this is when we would be more specific about general fund options, and we would welcome City Council input on how to prioritize the resources that you do have and how to balance the budget. We will also introduce the other funds, the enterprise capital and the special revenue grant funds. Finally, the tentative date, I don't think this has been formally scheduled yet, would be budget adoption targeted for the last meeting of June. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions that you have.
Thank you, Mrs. Susan Mayer. I'll start on my left with Councilman Escobar. Do you have any questions?
Ms. Meyer, I apologize. I appreciate your candidness. It's harsh information. Some tough decisions will need to be made. But I appreciate the fact that you didn't sugarcoat anything. And at the end of the day, I think I've said this before, we need to learn to live within our means, bottom line. If we are making 14 million, we cannot spend 17 million. It makes no sense to anybody. So I appreciate the fact that you made it clear, concise, and again, a little harsh, but you did not sugarcoat. Thank you.
Councilman Hodge?
I want to thank you for all your hard work, too, and your straightforwardness. I'm an educator, so my background, where is it? On slide 4, could you elaborate a little more on what is meant by 50% confidence or 70% confidence?
Actuaries look at range of possible options, and they come up with a most likely scenario. In any given year, you might have more claims than another. But when they look at over a period of years, they see trends.
Right.
And they say, on average, over a period of years, you are likely to have a certain amount of claims. And then they look at the variability, and they assign a confidence level. And so basically, it's the bell curve. It's the bell curve, right? As you were starting out your self-insurance program, your actuaries were advising you to use a 70% confidence level because you were starting out and there wasn't a track record. Now we're ratcheting that recommendation to 50% confidence.
Thank you. That's all.
Councilman Pacheco?
Ms. Mayor, is there another way of paying back the JPIA? Can we make a concerted effort to pay them, but at not $800,000 upfront, but is there a way to pay them in increments or on a time, you know what I mean? Not upfront, but...
Interestingly enough, the city did have payment plans. JPA normally offers payment plans with an interest cost. But when you are an active member, you have that option to make payments over time, and you still are making installment payments on some of the past charges. However, you're not a member anymore.
That's correct.
You're no longer flexible. But I think that would be an interesting conversation to have, to say, we will make good on this, and would you consider stretching these payments out for us? You are stretching out. In the back of your book, there is a payment schedule for each of the programs. There is a page on the workers' comp program, and there's a page on the general liability program, and we listed the payment schedules for each of those. It's the general liability payment that is coming due July 1st that is the particularly large one. And when you think about it from JPA's point of view, you just settled a bunch of claims. This city had a lot of claims. Many of them have been settled within the last few months, and so they've paid out all those settlements. And so it would probably be difficult to try to negotiate extending that reimbursement, but it's a great conversation to have. So it would be nice to be able to do that.
Okay, thank you.
My concern is that, yes, you could defer that payment out, but I think that as the JPIA payments phase down, your CalPERS payments will phase up, and I don't know that it will give you a long-term benefit.
The unfunded is really what everybody is, all statewide, all cities need to pay that. It's just an upfront cost. Everybody has to pay the unfunded liability. Okay.
Councilman Mortado, do you have a comment? Okay. Again, just want to thank you for your report. I think it's very thorough. I think I'll echo my fellow council members. It wasn't sugarcoated, and I think that's best. I can't express how much I struggle personally with this issue and being there as a council member when these issues happened. But unfortunate circumstances. But I think that I think it's time that we turn the page. But one of the things is that the reality from attending other cities' council meetings, we're not alone. This is something, that even if we wouldn't have misspent $9 million, we still would be in a situation like this in the future. And I think that's important that the people know. Was there misspending? Yes. Was there gross negligence? Yes. But the reality is that full-service cities are kind of becoming a thing of the past, and that is because of these unfunded liabilities that are just extremely over our heads. Cities cannot grow fast enough to pay their bills. That's a reality. We need to try, and that's why I think it's extremely important that, the last thing you want to cut when you need revenue is economic development, right? Because that's your tool. So we definitely need people in that sector, and hopefully we can battle it from both sides, right? This problem needs to be battled by economic development and bringing revenue in, and also cutting cost. But at the same time, as I'm assuming you were here when you heard our residents coming in and saying, hey, we need street sweeping, we need this, we need that. I mean, I don't know how to express to them that I'm sure that every council member up here would do anything they could to be able to give the city the best services that we can. But it's unfortunate that obviously monies is definitely important. But again, thank you for this. And I had a question, and I asked our finance director. We are making payments to JPIA for the prior years, but at the same time, there is also a cost benefit to not being with JPIA in upwards of $1 million that we're saving. So in a way, it's kind of compensating that as well. Is that correct?
The budget assumes claims based on actuarial projections. There have not been as many claims coming through. It takes a long time to develop a claim, many years sometimes.
Well, my understanding, and again, our loss runs, which are the claims. When we were with JPIA, I know that JPIA, every single claim would be sent to JPIA for some reason, versus now, because the city, I believe, takes care of the claims before they go to the insurance. Could that be the reason why our workman's comp claims are lower? Could that be that just the employees have kind of seen the situation the city's in and hopefully have kind of, tapered off with all their claims?
Those
Do we
are
know?
Subjective questions that I'm not prepared to answer.
Okay. All right, maybe the city manager can give us some numbers on that. But again, thank you. If there's no other questions.
We do have a speaker on this side, if I'm correct.
Oh, yeah, Kim. John Kim.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor, and thank you for the council members. Finally, I have a chance to question about the budget, and you guys violated my rights several times already. And first of all, some questioning. I see the budget briefly and very understandable. And was Mr. Hachi was asking about the 50% of our confidence level. Is that caused by several claims that JPI paid out?
I think this is unrelated. The confidence level is related to your self-insurance program for
Yes.
claims since January 2016. The JPA is the retrospective charge for claims prior to that. when you
So
were still
they paid it, so we have increased our what's called the confidence level going down from the 70% to the 50%. That causing our more payments on our self-insurance too.
Attorney, is this just a comment, correct? So, I mean, can you make your comment, please?
Okay, so she doesn't have to answer
No.
me then. Thank you. And also, I have a page 3 in the sheet, I believe the cost of the services. And I see clearly, but the wastewater loan is then, I believe that is for the loan payment is not general fund. I believe that's for the what's called enterprise fund payments. So supposedly not implementing general fund. It looks like implementing general fund. And also I don't know exactly all the cost about the enterprise fund of the cost of the running, even we paying the liability insurance, which is not beside the salaries, is that portion from the general enterprise fund portions implementing to separately to the charge the enterprise fund or paid by general funds. I have some question on those, and I'm glad you find some money for the about $700,000 from the not being charged for enterprise funds. I believe they supposed to have more than what you found it. I will see this, the budget at the practice last, you might can say 20 years. I don't think I have the trust of the practice. And I hope you find more than again, you don't, I believe that as a comment, you don't have to answer me. But I believe the water loan, it should be paid by the enterprise fund money, not by the general funds. And also, actually the JPIA, even we are out of the JPIA from the so much high cost to us, they keep charging us every year more. We escape from that hippos, but we still pay for that. And even they paid out, instead of fighting for us, they paid out the settlement for all the claim. Now we have a bad, confidence level, our cost us more for that for the future.
Please close your comments,
Okay.
sir.
And I believe we're supposed looking into charging the impact fee more than $6 million. We didn't charge the Grand Plaza. We should be looking into to charge them even about $700,000 for the reimbursement program for the lawyers court fee. We should be collected. I know you don't want to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, always well noted. We will move on to future agenda items. I think we're missing a
Mr. Mayor,
council member.
before we go into
for the
the
record.
next item.
Excuse me?
You want to make a comment?
We're going to be working really hard to try to close the gap over the next 2 or 3 weeks. We do have a presentation to make before the Economic and Financial Board, and we hope that we get some feedback from them and
I would like to
find ways to.
I would like to invite the people that have the questions for the finance, and in the finance, I think that's the appropriate meeting they can go to. Mr. Kim, if you would like to attend, I think that's the right place to actually ask questions to the finance director that he has.
We have tentatively scheduled a meeting for next Tuesday to go over the budget and the gaps.
Okay.
That's all, thank you.
Okay, future agenda items. I'll start to my left, Councilman Escobar.
None, thank you.
None? Councilman Hodge?
Not so much an agenda item, but somebody brought to my attention that Kermit Park still has a fencing, it's surrounded by a fence.
Go ahead. Pacheco.
And we don't have any more events out there, so is there any reason why we still have the fencing there, or it just?
Can we look into it?
I can look into that. Yeah.
because
All right.
I don't, the venue, it's not used as a place to have.
Sure.
Okay. Mr. City Manager, I hope I have the backing of the rest of the council here. But I'm still hearing, and Chief Gomez, it's not from the dispatchers themselves. I don't want you to, because I'm bringing this up, and I'm not saying you do, but they should not be approached. But I'm very concerned that we don't have a systematic legal break and lunch system for the dispatchers. And I just don't want to hear these complaints anymore. So I'm giving the directive that we correct this, because if we don't, we're going to, I mean, we have, in my opinion, labor law violations, and this could lead to a larger mess than what we already have, more liabilities, back pay to the city. It's happened to other cities. I want to see this corrected, where what I mean is when a dispatcher has to go to the restroom, there's a time for it, or work it out, and someone's already there to relieve that person. And it's not a question of hiring more dispatchers right now, because that practice could still continue, not unless you tell me you've solved the problem by yesterday. So that's where I stand.
And I would like to ask, is that something the city manager, or is that a management issue on part of the police department? As far as, how does that work?
I think it's in the department, so, but, you know, we'll take your comments and address them with the appropriate department head.
Okay, I have a future agenda item that I know that our attorney has been working on for a while now, and hopefully we're getting ready to bring it. I think it's extremely important. It was touched a few times today by council members and by public, and I know that one of the issues that we've had, and I do want to commend our building and code enforcement, because they definitely have helped the situation. I don't think they've mastered it, but they're getting there as far as these buildings. I know my colleague Escobar has mentioned Burger King, the USA gas station on Imperial, the Rite Aid on 3rd Street, all these buildings. And I did mention to our attorney Carlos that other cities have a building abatement laws that you know, bylaws that we can start going to these buildings and charging them for not cutting the grass. And you know, we can do it and then send them the bill to a point where you know, these companies could actually lose their properties. We can put liens on their properties for not having a property management company that is taking care of that. And other cities have it. I know we don't, but I want to make sure that the council is on board with bringing that as soon as possible, because it not only helps economic development, but it makes our city look better. We have Cárdenas coming in, which is a great addition to our city, but then we have Peso Market next door with, you know, weeds, you know, 10 feet high, and so it's definitely a tool that we can use for economic development and to beautify our city. So that's my future agenda item. I know that we're not reinventing the wheel. I know that other cities have them, so we can take that and kind of, you know, just you know, try and adapt it to our city. I want people to remember that even though we take, you know, we take these laws from other cities and you know, adapt them to ours, it doesn't mean that they can't be changed. You know, there's always ways to amend them if there's things that happen along the way. But we got to start somewhere, and so I think it's extremely important that we get a building abatement.
I'd like to add to that. That's what I was pointing out today.
No, it was my idea first. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry.
No.
The Gato Act, I'll give that to you, and that can be very helpful. We can actually profit from contaminated or dilapidated or terrible property.
We're just having fun. So you do support me on that? So hopefully we can get.
But on the same lines, Mayor, there's buildings that have been tagged by the city that they're not.
Red tag?
Yeah, you can't go in, but there's a lot of stuff inside that it just looks terrible.
And one of the things that that building abatement program has, and I know that, like I said, the city staff has helped with, for example, fencing Burger King, and because it was a disaster. People were sleeping there and everything. But, you know, I would still like to see something like, for example, the fence being covered, because, you know, you can still see through the fence and it still looks ugly, right? It's an eyesore. And so we need to work on it, but we need to give the staff the right tools, the laws, to go ahead and, so they can go ahead and do that. I know, for example, there's no law on the city of Calexico for the business licenses. You have people that haven't paid their business license in 10 years, and the city can't close them down because there is no legal way to do that. So we need to give the staff also that authority to go ahead and do that. So I want to thank the council for supporting that. Let's get on the agenda and let's start moving.
I have one more. Mr. Ben Horton showed me an envelope that, I don't know if he had put it together, sir, or others, or it was a collaborative effort, but it was a very good idea. It had how to be successful in business in Calexico, a pamphlet and a fact sheet. And I could be wrong, but I hear that we're not really using that. And I would like to make a suggestion, a very strong suggestion, that when we have new businesses come, that's good PR, that we hand out that envelope and we give them that information. That's a small step, but that's a step in the right direction. Do you know what I'm referring to? I have a sample of it, but it's in the car.
Part of our marketing
Right.
brochure, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, Councilman Hurtado I don't know if she went to the bathroom or she's no longer here. Okay, then I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.